That hurt. More verticality. All right, we had to get to this show. Welcome to the Straight Red Card. We had to get to this right away because, well, A, the clock is ticking, and B, if we don't, Brett and I are just going to talk about it off show for like an hour before we do the show. So we're just jumping in here. And I guess the first thing we should start with before we get to the 28-man roster that Berhalter picked was Pepi-gate.
I guess about the 28-man roster too, but yeah, Pepi-gate. People might not know what this is about. It's kind of flying under the radar for a lot of people, but it is picking up steam on Twitter. Our good friend Berlin brought this to our attention.
Hopefully, he's not the one who started the rumor.
No, but he's laughing at a lot of the stuff. He even brought up. He goes, "I'm honestly surprised how funny these German posters are because the Germans are notorious for humor."
Yeah, not having much of one of them.
So, and this is all a quote from Berlin. Hashtag Pepi-gate may trend soon. There was going to be a response to the over-the-top U.S. men's national team hype train on Pepi from Germans. I tried to pump the brakes, but here you go. Pepi is trending and is literally a running gag on the German Twitter now. It started off with a fake quote.
Yes.
And
yes, it did.
Since you've already had the fake quote, I don't have to pull it up, so I'm just going to read it.
All right, go for it.
The fake quote is, and you'll see it on the screen and all, but he goes, I suddenly felt something warm on my leg. Sorry. I suddenly felt something warm on my thigh. Coach, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Waynesdale?
Are you talking?
What's the coach's name?
Are you talking about the coach of Augsburg?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Weinzier? Okay, just the manager.
Yeah. I suddenly felt something warm on my thigh. The manager just peed on my leg, and he told me it was normal. I was his player now.
Yeah, so, that didn't happen.
No, a lot of people are like, man, those Germans are kinks, man. And they're kinks, and it's just like, everybody's like, fake, it's fake, it's fake. Well, of course it's a fake.
Well, there is a particular culture in Germany. Certainly it started after, the war, that became very self-denigrating. And that's why you had a lot of that weird porn coming out of Germany for a while with the peeing and the poop and all that. Yeah, they got into that. Just sort of, I don't know, self-punishment. Anyhow, that didn't happen, but it would be funny if it really did. But it's amazing how far it spread that I'm not even on Twitter and I heard about it. All right. Now I heard about it. I watched some ESPN FC interview of a gentleman who covers the sport in Germany they had on the show. And he explained that this whole Pepi hype train is really annoying to every other team and every other city in Germany. And here's why, folks, because Pepi did an interview for Bild, and in it he says he can't wait to play for Augsburg in the Champions League. That's not something Germans would say. Germans do, and then they say, look what I did. They don't do, this is what I want to do. Hopefully this is what I get to do. That's not something Germans do. Or give a lot of compliments. That's not really their thing either. It's just a cultural thing. I don't think my grandfather ever had one nice word to say about anything that, yeah. Sometimes he did when I played soccer and he was there.
Like these German posters can go ahead and 50-10 haul, come on. So the team has come out with a response to it.
Yeah. Why did they?
They don't have a sense of humor, I guess.
I guess not, but I mean, it's better just not to answer that.
You ready for that quote?
Yes. What is?
This is translated from Google Translate, so it may be butchered.
Okay.
but it's close enough, I'm sure. Actually, obvious that this quote is a fake. We can laugh about a lot and often don't take ourselves too seriously. But since some of you out there seem to think so, let's make it clear that this is a fake.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why you'd have to make that clear. That would sound really weird if your manager's into pissing on you in order to claim that
Don't
you are now
protest too much.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little about that later with Berhalter too, but
Well,
it reminds me of a time in politics when LBJ was running for, I think, a congressional seat at the time, and he got together with his staff because he was behind in the polls, and he said, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start spreading the rumor that the guy running against me has sex with his farm animals because he was a farmer. And his staff was like, you can't just say that and do that. He's like, well, let's just see him deny it. And that's exactly what he did. Like a couple of weeks later, the guy had to come out and say, I do not have sex with my farm animals.
So
that legitimized it.
Legitimized it. I feel like they should have taken a page. Mind you, this is decades later, of course, but should have taken a page out of the new Star Trek movie where they're like, I thought you hillbillies only fucked farm animals. And Captain Kirk goes, well, not only, So I'm like, if it were me and I was the head of their PR, I would have leaned into it. Instead of saying the coach did not piss on him in the shower, he should have said, we are an old-fashioned, classy team. We don't piss on people until the third date.
Could have done that, which I think would have been awesome. Just
that would have been great. I mean, come on,
make another joke out of it.
Let's make some jokes out of this.
Or they could have said the urinal next to the shower is very close. The manager was peeing. He slipped, and his piss went off target and hit him accidentally in the thigh, or something. But coming out and denying it, man, just makes it more. I mean, LBJ did this twice, actually, at another opponent. I read this in a book. This is a long time ago, so if I'm misquoting what really happened, I apologize. It's just this from memory. But one of the other things he did to another future or earlier opponent was he said to his staff, we're going to start spreading the rumor that my opponent's daughter is a thespian. And a lot of people don't know what a thespian is, so they assume
actor.
Yeah, so people would start spreading the rumor. Yeah, I heard she's a thespian.
You mean she likes ladies?
So this is back in I don't know, would be around the 50s, late 50s, mid 50s, or something like that. But anyhow, weird shit like that works, man. So, but if you don't say anything about it, then it's probably not a big deal. But if you come out the next day and say, my daughter is not a thespian, you shouldn't deny it. Shouldn't have to deny it. That or getting peed on in the shower, or peeing on someone in the shower. But oh boy, we got a lot to go over, man. Because I mean, this list is got some oddities in it, just a few here and there, but definitely some oddities. I mean, we'll start, I guess, with the goalkeepers, and we'll do what we usually do: start with the goalkeepers and head south on this list. But nothing surprising on the goalkeepers.
Fourth goalkeeper, perhaps.
That's the only thing was they kept Slonina on this list.
I'm cool with it. They're expecting Turner to take that big contract at Arsenal, and then all of a sudden, all of our players are going to be sitting the bench. So they have to get the new up-and-coming goalkeeper that's going to lead the team to the World Cup finals some experience, integrated into the team.
Yeah, right. But you're right about the Arsenal thing, because if that does go down during this transfer window during internationals, Matt Turner's going to have to leave, and he's going to have to fly over there. And as I understand it, Arsenal are getting rid of Bernd Leno, so that would make him the number 2, and at least not the number 3. Although I think he would still be ahead of Leno anyhow. But he's not. It's going to take him a while to take over the job from Ramsdale. That's for sure. That's not going to happen overnight. And then defenders, there are a
Oof,
few
what a
odd.
list.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start. Cannon, who hasn't been playing right back at all, is on this list. He's been playing right center back for Boa Vista.
Mhm.
Dest, we expect as not only the right back, but the left back support for Robinson. Brooks
We'll get into that
Lennon.
in a second.
Brooks Lennon, I predicted yesterday.
We never talked about it, but yeah, you
uh,
did.
Oh shit, that's right. We never talked about it, but I sent at one point, I texted you a list of the people that Greg had as slotted in for the interviews.
I had no
US
idea.
soccer interviews.
Yeah, I had no idea another 8 MLS players would have been called up then.
Yeah. Well, there are only 4. There was Zimmerman.
My bad, 9. The 9 other
Yeah.
9 other MLS players.
But as soon as I saw Lennon did one of the interviews, I said, okay, he's on this roster because there's no point in letting the press interview him.
Yeah.
Although, it was just a hint and I bit and I just happened to be right. Now we were right about one thing we've been telling everybody.
Mhm.
All right. John Brooks is not making this team. And he did not make the team.
But Derek, to make this team, it's all about form. And
right.
What kind of form could Brooks be in after having played three 90-minute games in a row for Wolfsburg? I mean,
yeah.
Come on.
And then I thought Greg in the interview today protested too much when asked about Brooks and why he wasn't on here. I don't know exactly what he said, but he was adamant. He's like, it has nothing to do with anything else but form. That's it. And
so either the question hit too close to home or he pays attention to social media.
I'm guessing because I mean we're the first ones to come out and say it. Now everybody claims they're fucking geniuses and they know about it.
I always say Berhalter watches our show.
I don't know if he got from our show, but I mean, if the whole Miazza kicking Greg's dog gets all the way to Jason Davis, who we absolutely do not know at all, then you got to wonder how far this has gone. But the fact is, and like I said, people don't have to believe me if they do not want, but that's the truth. It's they had a little dust up. It wasn't much, but Brooks was not positive in the locker room when he doesn't play. And Greg made it really clear that if he were on this team for this window, he wouldn't play anyhow because they have a whole different thing they're going to do. And both Ream and Brooks don't fit into that thing. And what do Brooks and Ream have in common? I ask. They're slow. They're both slow, which means we're going to probably play a really high block and we're going to press. And when you do that, especially with your left and right back, you need to have 2 center backs who are quick and who can cover behind them in case they try to flop one over us when you're playing that high of a block. So if that's and if Greg thinks he was keeping it a mystery by saying what he said, he wasn't, because that's what that means. We're playing a high block. Yeah. And if that's the case, I understand why Brooks and Ream don't fit in this. I do. I get it.
I mean, again, it would make more sense. And we talked about this in the second segment last night or 2 nights ago now, I guess, about the MLS, about MLS and all the players that aren't being transfer abroad. Yeah, I got bit there. Yeah.
You just did it.
Whoopsies. Now, but I mean, outside of having a PR mess, I mean, why lie about stuff? Because the players are coming out and saying like, nah, that never happened like that.
Yeah.
So this is in a situation where it's clear what if Berhalter has a plan, that's fine. Own up to it and say, this is what I'm planning on doing. I think these guys will fit this formation better. Come World Cup, we might play a bit different. That's a possibility to think about. We're playing a high press here now, this style against CONCACAF, but who knows once we start playing some top teams from Europe or South America or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Spain, are you really going to play a high block? That sounds kind of dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, the fact that Greg's like this had everything to just do with form. No, it really doesn't. I mean, he explained the Ream thing, but the Ream thing also makes sense for the Brooks thing. by saying, yeah, it's not going to fit the style we're going to play in this window. Okay.
Well, I guess one thing to take into consideration is when he talks about form, he may not necessarily just be talking about club form, but also form with the national team. Because if you really look at a couple of the other defenders that we've already talked about, I mean, Long hasn't necessarily been called up into a camp to play. He's been in a couple camps, and he's not in this one by any means. So I'm not using him as an example here, but he's been brought back into the fold, even though he hasn't played for 8 months.
Hold on.
Dest hasn't really played much or well for Barcelona recently. Yedlin has not been playing for the past handful of weeks. We've talked about that in our weekend reports.
Exactly.
So you mentioned Cannon playing right center back a couple games here and there, but he hasn't really been playing consistently either for his team. So it's questionable that he can make an argument for form, but then call in players who aren't necessarily in the best of form.
He should not have used the word form.
Yeah.
He should have stuck with the argument he made for Ream not being there, which is that Brooks and Ream both don't, and he did intimate it the same thing with Brooks, just don't fit into the way we plan on playing in this window.
I would respect that.
Well,
I may or may not disagree with you. Yeah, exactly. I'm saying I would respect that phrasing.
Yeah,
I think it led off with form, and it just talked about form.
And that, if you're talking about form, then you're contradicting yourself, because there are guys on this roster who haven't played for months. There are guys on this roster who have been in poor form most of the time when they play for us. Christian Roldan being one of them. So
say it out loud.
So you can't say form. You can't use that word when it's just not going to be consistent across the board.
Yeah.
The fact that he keeps using that word, I think, is silly.
So while we're on the defenders here, the first thing that stuck out in my mind when looking over who was included here was we have one left back, and I know Des can go left back, but I mean, unless he's expecting Dest and or Robinson to play the full 90 all 3 games, which we'll get into here in a second too. There'd be a point where Dest is not on the field to give him a rest so that he can take the position from Jedi.
He said that Yedlin could play left back too.
But, yeah. He also said Cannon too. So hold on. He said Yedlin, Cannon, and Acosta can all play left back. But it blows my mind that we don't have it's how do we not have a utility wing back that could play both left and right?
Yeah, and that's the Scally issue, right? That's Scally-gate. Why is Scally? I know he just got back from Rona, and I know he just
but he's still playing.
He still played the first minutes, and so I think he would be still fit enough to come in and
Way is included
left back backup. So again, just shit that doesn't really make sense. It's really right wing heavy, right back heavy, excuse me. And I mean, Yedlin hasn't played left back since he was with the Sounders, I believe. So I mean, that's going back a long time.
And talking about the point that I made, where I was like, does he expect Robinson or Dest to play 90 minutes every game? It was fascinating.
No.
It was fascinating after the first couple windows where he mentioned that, it's unrealistic for players to play 90 minutes, 3 games in 6 days. And all of us were screaming out, they do it for the club. They do it for the club. And now he's saying, well, I don't think it's out of the question for a player to play 3 games, 90 minutes each in 6 days. I mean, they do it for the club if they play a midweek game. I'm like, no shit.
It's baffling because just keep getting mixed messages. And the one guy asks, do you plan to have a, total new lineup, for the middle game? And he's like, all of these guys are here because they might play or something like that. And it's like, okay, could you be more general and not answer the fucking question at all? I mean, that's what these guys keep asking questions that they know they're going to get this massive general answer. Ask them questions that pin them down a little bit. That's why I like the Brooks question. It was specific. Was like, hey, what about this guy? Why didn't he make the team? And we're not going to know why Scally didn't make it because no one asked.
Yeah, exactly. But he made a comment. He's doubling down on his decision for the Panama game. And he's like, like I more or less stated that he's sticking with his decisions on that game. And it wasn't the line changes that made the difference and why we ended up losing. It was just a bad game for us. And yeah, sure, 9 times out of 10, we'd probably come away with at least a point, if not 3 points.
Yeah.
But let's point out though that game was bad because of, quite frankly, who we had running our midfield. It was just 7 changes, I think it was, for that specific game from the first game. It's just not needed.
And that was the question. Are you going to do that again? And Greg said, well, he didn't answer the question. He just say everybody's here because they can play. Okay.
Great
answer.
Yeah. To that point, another thing he brought up, he brought up how Tyler Adams is resting on a yellow card suspension if he gets another one. So are we going to sit him for El Salvador, hoping that he'd be good to go for Canada? And I liked his comment here where he basically said, "No, we're taking it one game at a time. We're playing our best team. And, if Tyler gets a yellow card against El Salvador, we'll make it work." Is what he basically said.
God, who is that dumbass who asked the question? Hey, Greg, is this an opportunity for the team to get 9 points? It could answer that question for that dude before the lips had left his mouth. The answer was going to be, I'm not falling into that trap. We're taking this one game at a time.
Yeah, that's a good answer to it, though.
It is, but it's such a throwaway question. What a waste of a question.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So general, it's easy to know what the answer is already. Does this guy pay attention to all the other pressers he's been part of where he's asked silly questions? I don't know who the dude is. And I'm sure he's a fucking fantastically nice guy because he asks fantastically very nice softball questions all the time. So I don't know. Is that what we call reporting nowadays? Is that what that is? Because that's not how it was back when when I was covering shit with Bruce Arena. I can tell you that we took people asked a lot harder questions back in the day. I don't know what's going on, but there are some real limp dick questions.
Here is toss softball question. Yeah. I'm coming to like a crappy German accent there. Yeah.
Some guys are Guten Tag. There are guys that do try to figure out a way to ask a hard question. You could tell Stephen Goff was really trying to figure out how to word that without it sounding like a pissy question.
I thought Ives had a really good question about.
I think Ives did. Yeah,
and
he did. He did.
So
he had some good ones.
I thought Shredder had good ones.
Yeah, and it was nice to know that 3 of the best questions asked. 2 of the guys who asked the 3 best questions have been on our show. Stephen Goff, 8 years ago, and Shredder like a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. Or has it already been a month? Holy shit. And we'll have Brian back, but he asked a good question too. And I like it because he gets really specific about specific players. I just wish the word Scally would have come out of his mouth as well.
Yeah.
And it didn't. But hey, he got 90% of the question absolutely on the button.
Well, I feel like maybe they're looking at these questions and going, if I ask a very specific thing, I'm going to assume that I'm going to get some random deflection answer, like, hey, why isn't Scally included in this lineup? We just went with a couple other players.
Well, you know what? I get it. Some people just don't know. They're trying to tiptoe around because there's access issues. I did not notice that Meg was there. I hope that's not a sign of the times because she's been there all the time up until this interview. So I'm like, where's Meg? Instead, that other gal asked questions about chicken soup, for Christ's sake. Is that really where we're going with this? Chicken soup? We're going to talk about chicken soup. And Greg's...
Yeah, it was about how are you going to people in NFL do this, and this? Do you guys have ideas of how you're going to maintain? Because it's going to be shit cold weather, and Greg went into talking about that as being an advantage for us too. And we talked about this a number of times where the opponents that we're playing our home matches against have played all their games that window and next to the equator. So they're coming from incredibly hot weather. to incredibly insanely cold weather, or vice versa. I guess El Salvador will start in the cold weather and then go back down to warm weather. But
didn't one of the guys call that inhumane?
yeah, I remember the people playing this weather it was almost inhumane.
Inhumane was conditions.
Yeah. Well, Berhalter mentioned his time in Germany. He's like, yeah, I remember playing in Germany. It was negative 15 degrees Celsius, and I wore short sleeve shirt.
I bet he did. And he said it's mind over matter. And honestly, it is. We've all had to play.
You get out there and you're running around. Games. I'm not overly concerned about the players with the cold weather. Mind you, the muscles tightening up, that type of thing. Sure, understandable. But as far as just like the cold weather, when you're out there playing, you don't notice it nearly as much as you would think. The people I would be more concerned about are the ones that are sitting in the stands, or the bench players who are trying to stay warm because they may get called in at any point. So they're sitting on their ass for 60 minutes, 70 minutes, and then they get thrown into a field where their muscles are all tied up from resting,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because if you don't keep moving, then it becomes an issue. And I mean, the Kentucky State Finals for soccer used to be played in October. It was fucking cold. It was cold. On during some of the games.
I remember sectionals and regionals, it would be like 15 degrees and raining. And you'd take a hit, you'd fall down into a puddle, you're drenched for the rest of the game. Yeah, it sucks. But I mean, you get over the initial shock and all of a sudden you're burning up the rest of the game.
Yeah, I don't remember if
fever, but
I don't know if you had this problem too, but if it was raining and snowing or cold and you were playing and the ball got the leather started soaking up the fucking water. And so when the dude,
the ball, the water goes.
I mean, if a header came to you, you're like, oh, fuck, this is going to hurt. Because that ball just got so logged with water because it was different material back then. That's how old I am. And so when there were corner kicks, you're like, okay, I'm going to go up for this. I'm going to try to get it. But I know it's going to hurt like fucking hell when I head this thing. It's going to feel like heading a boulder is what it's going to feel like. It'll like nearly knock your ass out. But back then we didn't have a lot of worries about,
concussions and shit like that. Like,
nobody
rub some dirt on and get back out there.
Oh, totally, dude. I can't tell you how many times I saw stars and was like, I just saw stars and felt a little woozy and just got back up and kept going. So
I was fortunate not to have any serious injuries until I was a much older man. And then I blew out my knee 3 times in like 6 weeks.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about your Peyronie's disease. But that's too personal. All right.
Yeah. For another show, for a different podcast on a different channel.
Yeah, I probably should have said that. All right. I mean, not.
Did you notice?
Are you going to deny it?
Augsburg. I leaned into it. I'm just like you don't say, "Oh, I don't have that." You're just like, "Yeah, but I'll talk about that later."
Yeah,
you don't deny it. You lean into that shit because nobody's gonna believe it. Come on.
I just LBJ'd you.
Yeah. And right. I didn't take the bite. I mean, I didn't take the bait,
No, you didn't. All right. So Dest, Brooks Lennon shouldn't be here, but is, although maybe he had a great camp. But we already talked.
Still
Scally should be
unless there's some other reason that we're unaware of. I mean, they did talk about people with the beer bug recent. And I mean, I know he had it and he was out for another game after he came back, but then he came back and played. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there could be something behind the scenes we don't know.
I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a timetable from when you have it to when you could enter Canada,
He should realistically be there. Mark McKenzie's there. That's fine, although he hasn't played since Christmas.
There was a lot of people were asking about that for Brooks. Yeah, why is McKenzie there but not Brooks?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like he's been in the greatest form either. Chris Richards, but here's the theme. Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, and Miles Robinson. What are all they? A lot faster than Ream and Brooks. They're all faster than him. All of them. Even Walker Zimmerman is faster than Brooks. So out of those 4, he's probably the slowest, but he's not slower than Ream or Brooks. So he's probably going to start. Zimmerman would be my guess. It'll be Robinson and Zimmerman.
Just as good in the air. Robinson and Zimmerman's distribution could use a little work.
Richards
is pretty solid when it comes to that.
I mean, that's the thing, because Ream and Brooks are the best distributors we have,
Yeah.
but they're also the slowest players we have. So I get what's going on here, but I think that Berhalter could have been really clear about that. And that would make sure that Brooks doesn't have to write another silly Twitter tweet that apologizes for his poor form and says he's going to fight back and all this shit.
Yeah, I guess in fairness to Berhalter in this, he kind of mentioned it.
Did.
He basically said, like, in this camp, we just see these players to be the better fit. Not that Ream can't work his way back into it later on, and I'm sure it kind of considers Brooks in that same category. And we had talked about it earlier that when you're playing a higher quality team, are we going to continue to play the style that we're going to be playing against El Salvador's or the Hondurans? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think that if he would have just said, because he's already intimated it, he might as well have just said it at this point, because it's not really going to give much away to your opponents. So let's say he says, yeah, I mean, our plan for this window is to play a high block, high press, high line. And
you don't have to, you don't even have to say that by just looking at the roster. You're like, well, geez, all their center backs are relatively quick.
Well, he could have said it, and that would have taken all the pressure off the Brooks situation.
Sure.
Because people would have gone, yeah, he is kind of slow. And if we do play a high line, that's not the best person to play. And so, I mean, why not just say it? Because you're not giving anything away. The other team already knows by the fact that you're looking at this roster and you're looking at what he just said about the style of play they plan to play. And you put 2 and 2 together, you get 4. You get slow and slow equals 4. So there you go. We got Miles Robinson, Anthony Robinson, DeAndre Yedlin, and Walker Zimmerman. DeAndre Yedlin hasn't played for a while, so that was a little interesting, but we know he's one of Greg's favorites. So he's
integrated, so we're good to go.
He is integrated. Another Scally issue, although he got one integration so far. Midfielders, again, a lot of this is just not going to be surprising. I think we called most of this. In fact, I'm trying to find a single player on here. You got Costa, Adams, Luca De La Torre.
There's the big surprise.
Yeah, we're both happy to see that. Leggett, we just figured he'd be on here. McKennie, yep, not surprising. Musa, yep, and Christian Roldan. I mean, none of that is shocking. If you're still surprised by this, you're not paying attention, because this is what Greg does.
They're grinding out for CONCACAF, basically, because come World Cup, I'd be surprised if all of those names are still included, but that's neither here nor there. Let's worry about that when it actually happens. I guess the big question here, and this has been a big topic as far as Twitter is concerned. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that Berhalter spends much time on Twitter, but I mean, everybody's talking about De La Torre, and whether or not you agree he should be there. We even did a good chunk of a segment on him.
Yep.
That'll come out probably after this show. I'm not sure. I'm assuming this one's going to go up first, but I mean, why is he all of a sudden included in the roster over other names? I mean, you're looking at like Busio, and we found out that Busio, I think, now has the beer bug.
He has the Rona. Yep.
But I mean, all the other names are what you would have expected, unless you start looking at maybe Berhalter wants to try other people. But I don't think it's going to happen this late into the cycle.
I get it, but I think I would have brought Tessman just to start getting him acclimated.
I was gonna mention Tessman as an option. Okay, so this is another thing. So we brought 28 players, which good on Greg for bringing more than 25. I assumed he was just going to bring 25 because he's a stickler for it. But then he mentioned in his presser, he's like, yeah, when you start getting into like 30 players, it's tough to organize proper training. I'm like, what training? You're there for 6 days. Most of that's flying and recovering. What training are you doing?
Yeah, that was a really weird answer. If you've ever even been
another 2 players?
If you've ever been a youth coach and you see how many assistant coaches Greg has?
Yeah.
It's way too many. He has so many assistant coaches. It's like they're coming out of his butthole.
I mean, if teachers can have 28 to 30 kids in a classroom, I think Greg can manage light training during that 6-day window between 3 games
players.
for 30 players. Hey guys, we're just going to go outside, jog around in the cold weather so you stay acclimated to it, and come back in and eat lunch.
There's just some things that he says that just they don't add up. Like that comment, I'm like, what? That's like 3 more players than you, or 2 more players than you have.
Yeah.
You can't work 2 more guys.
Oh, that's way too much work, man.
That's where the limit is. 29. Once it goes past 29, you can't handle it anymore. Oh, I think if you have 50 coaches on your team, you could figure out something. Come on, dude.
Everybody gets 3 players.
It's so ridiculous. No, I mean, somebody else had mentioned this is the most assistant coaches the United States has ever had on the team.
Yeah.
And they're all over the field. I mean, when we play the games too, they're all over each individual player. There's so many different coaches and assistants talking to different players on the sidelines during like the water breaks or whatever. There's an injury. It's unreal. I really haven't never seen. It's always like during Bruce's era, it was just Bruce and maybe one other guy. And that was it.
Yeah.
So it was a very clear message from one person.
When I know a lot of people were upset, they're looking at all the home with the next window, the games in Orlando, and that's it. No West Coast qualifiers, I guess. And people are upset about that, but maybe, just maybe, they have to pick the stadium according to the bench size. Fit all the coaches and the players. Maybe that's what it is.
No, we know very clearly. I mean, Greg made it very, very apparent today. This is all about the weather and how bad it's going to make players that play below the equator feel. And Zimmerman in his interview was like, I can't wait for this to be a snow game. I want it to snow. I remember the game versus Costa Rica. That's when I became a real U.S. men's national team fan. And that's what I want to be part of, an iconic game, just like that game. And okay, that's fine. No,
it's really cool to look back on that because we won. Would not be so cool to look back on that if we lost.
There's no way we're going to lose.
We won 1-0.
I know, but the Costa Ricans hated that shit.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, if it had gone against us, that would have been like it's just like, I cannot believe we chose to play in Denver in winter. Come on, what were we thinking? All that snow?
I'm not going to worry about it.
No, I'm not either. I mean,
it didn't happen. It didn't happen. We won, and
I'm just saying,
that's again, we're getting back to fairies on anuses again. I don't really want to do that. So, there aren't fairies on Uranus, so let's not talk about it.
What about Pluto?
There could be some on Venus. I don't know, but I doubt it seriously. And since we don't know, we shouldn't even conjecture on it.
We're not scientists, YouTube. Don't quote us on this.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing was that Zimmerman is a really good interview. He's really good at answering questions and not just always babbling.
Are you saying that he doesn't start every sentence like, like everybody when they're doing an interview, it's like they hear the question, they got to collect their thoughts, but while they're doing that, they have to fill the void with, I understand. Okay.
The worst interview is Pulisic. I mean, he is so fucking boring. They just did, I don't know if you saw this, but because the U.S. men's national team didn't want Herc from his channel to do the interviews with the U.S. players, they had to hire Sam Borden to do the interviews. And he just did one with Pulisic. And man, it's a snooze fest. You learn absolutely nothing. It is boring as fuck.
Do you think it's possible that a player like that does that on purpose because he doesn't want the media attention? Like he doesn't want to do the interviews. So
he didn't want to do it. He obviously did not want to be there, and it was obvious as hell. And I think Sam Borden is a really good interviewer, and he asked some really good questions. But Pulisic's answers were like a sentence long.
That could be strategery.
Why? What's the strategery?
What if Pulisic just doesn't like that aspect of the game? He doesn't want to be in front of the camera. He doesn't really want to talk about stuff. He just wants to go to camp, play the games, go back to club. There are certain people who love the camera. Weston loves the camera. He actively makes sure that he's always in the pictures on the behind the crest. He's always there talking to people. He would love to do those interviews, but maybe Pulisic's just not that way. And your thought process would be, man, if I tank a couple of these, maybe people will just not want to interview me anymore.
Well, it's kind of sad because Pulisic is the face of the national team. And
sure.
If they're going to do interviews, I hope they can be a little bit better and more interesting than they are.
So what you're saying is they need to give him some smelling salts just before it.
His interviews he does for Chelsea and the interviews he's done in the past for Dortmund have been funny. Sargent's funny when he did interviews for the Werder Bremen channel. They did some funny stuff, and Christian can be funny, but you got to ask him. I mean, those were really serious questions. I still would rather I like Sam Borden, but it would be really cool to have a former player like Herc interviewing him instead, or even Seb, because Seb's kind of a prickly character. You're going to get some prickly questions from Seb, but no, I guess not. Now they got to have Sam do it. And Sam's just a super nice guy. He's going to ask some good questions, but they're not going to be like hard hitting or anything like that. And that's what they want. They don't want hard hitting questions. So they don't want any of their players to get trapped and then have to answer for other questions in the past. And that's why we rarely see McKennie. We see Adams all the time do interviews for US Soccer, but we rarely see McKennie because he's a little bit more open and a little more jocular. And
I loved his interview with Gooch and who else was in the Davies and Adu, I think probably did it. When they did their podcast and they included him, and he had talked about he's like, I go around Italy, I've got a camera crew. And I'm just like, you got a camera crew?
Hey, I hope not.
No, he does. I mean, he said he's got a guy that stays at his house. He's a camera crew guy, It's just
boy. I hope there's no footage of what I'm imagining right now. All right, let's move to the forwards. Brendan Aronson. Yeah, great. Fine. Awesome. Still talks about Brendan getting that 20 mil offer from Leeds to make the move, but he's still in Champions League. I'd like to see him finish that out before he makes the move to the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's tempting. I'm sure if your whole life you're like, I just want to play the Premier League, and somebody makes you big offer like that. But then again, let's say he does really good in the Premier League, or the Champions League versus Bayern, then that price might go up even higher. So
I feel like that may be what Salzburg's doing. I don't think they have any intent of getting rid of him unless something ridiculous. It might be 20 million is still pretty damn good.
It is.
So they may opt to just say, hey, if you want to make the move, we're cool with it because we want the cash. But it's also possible they want to go as far as they can in the Champions League and then sell them in the summer, and that's a viable option. I mean, you had AC Milan vying for him. There's always talks of Leipzig because keep him in house. Why not? So I mean, and now Leeds, of course, Leeds, Arsenal was expressing interest.
I didn't hear the Arsenal.
Was it Arsenal? Maybe I'm looking at Tyler Adams on my screen for the thing. Maybe I'm thinking of him.
Could have been. I mean, yeah. So Aronson's got some decisions to make with his agent and his team coming up. If I were Leipzig, I would ride it out for a little while because I think his price can only go up. You're looking at World Cup qualifiers. You're looking at him playing Champions League. I think the price could go up, and so we'll see.
Well, not only that, we talked about the possible. I mean, Caden Clark's got a 6-month loan to New York Red Bulls right now, and then come summertime, that might be a nice flip flop, like we talked about.
I don't know if Caden Clark's got it, dude. I'm starting to question it. I really am, because he did not, after his appendicitis, he's just not been really the same guy yet. I just, as a player.
I mean, I don't really follow New York Red Bulls well enough to know how he played in those matches. And it could just be the style of play and where he's being played at. So
we'll say
I don't know enough of that.
He played a lot less after that.
He still played a decent chunk of change. I mean, there was only like a handful of games where he didn't play at all, and then the rest of the games got anywhere average about 60 minutes to 70 minutes a game.
But then he got dropped at that sort of near the end of the season. He didn't play as much, He was getting the end of the game minutes. Just look it up.
I will. And I'm going to call you out when if you've done this. Go ahead. Can move on.
All right, Paul Areola. This is
No
not
surprise.
a shock. Jesus Ferreira.
Hey, the guy doesn't want to go to Club America, I guess.
He denied that.
Yeah.
He sent our good buddy Steve
This is bullshit.
He's like, what? Question marks. When he said that Areola had pulled out of the Club America talks.
Ooh, no.
Now, here's the real fact of the matter, folks. The real fact of the matter is that an inside MLS deal was worth a lot more to DC United with all that GAM, which was $2 million of GAM, than sending him to Club America. Why would you do that? You're not going to get $2 million of GAM if Club America loan him or loan to buy or buy. So, and I don't know, nobody really knows what the Club America offers were either. So we're not even sure if they were lowballing. And in the end, it's probably better for Areola to go to FC Dallas because he's going to be guaranteed playing time there. He goes to Club America, he might have to battle for playing time. And that puts his bid to play in this upcoming World Cup in jeopardy. Although I don't think it would have, because I still think Greg would have he likes Areola a lot. So,
well, I mean, that position's getting awfully deep. And then you think about Gio coming back and everything like that. So, I mean, it's probably better that he is at a place where he's going to get consistent playing time. And I wonder how the people who are complaining about FC Dallas being a selling team and that you need to make sure you keep some players at home to really drive that interest at FC Dallas feel about Areola going there and using $2 million GAM TAM on him.
It's a lot. I think it's for
$2 million GAM TAM. Do you think they could probably find they could have found maybe like a $2 million DP to come in?
It's one of the biggest GAM deals ever for MLS.
It is the.
But Jesus Ferreira's there too. A lot of people were saying, "Hey, where's DK? Why is Ferreira there?" I get it. But I think that Pepi and DK offer a lot of the same things as far as being in the box poachers, in being able to get in the air, play headers. So I guess he wanted to
Jesus and Pepi won't be playing at the same time. They're going to be flopping out. So the like for like switch wouldn't be a bad thing. But remember, DK just had like a long break, and then he got transferred, and he's played like half a game so far.
Yeah,
I mean it's not Jesus has been with Greg for 2 months now,
and a lot of young boys friendlies were canceled because of the Rona. So I don't know if PFOC would necessarily be in shape. I don't know how fit he would be because they had a bunch of friendlies scheduled. I did see, I think 2 of them canceled because of Rona. So no friendlies for him. There might have been one recently that I missed, but because I don't always check the friendlies list, but I did see 2 of them canceled like last week, or was it the week before? No, I think it was last week.
All right. So back real quickly, back to the Clark thing. Just pulled it up.
What about
after the appendectomy?
Yeah.
He got a lot of consistent 70, 60-minute games. Then there was a span that he was on the bench. He got like 45 minutes here, 18 minutes there. A couple games where he got like 80 and 75. So it was kind of a mixed match. But there was definitely a 6-match window in the span of like a month and a couple weeks. 6 games off, 3 games on type of thing. So, yeah, I mean, definitely towards the end of the season, wasn't utilized as often.
No, because they were on a streak, too. Like, they were playing really well without him. And so, you get appendicitis, they play better with a different style.
But after the appendicitis, he came back and he was playing 70 minutes and 60 minutes almost like every game for like 2 months.
Were they winning? Was he getting any
more losses than wins?
That's correct. And were they getting was he getting assists and goals? No.
He had 1 assist.
Exactly. 1.
But in fairness, he didn't have I guess he had a lot before it, never mind.
Yes,
scratch that.
He started hot. Then after the appendicitis, they brought him back. He got cold. then they just said, fuck it, you're not playing that much anymore.
The team got cold during that time period, not necessarily just he got cold. Regardless, we're splitting hairs because again,
we're not, because he didn't play well, Brett. It's worth saying he was ineffectual, and that's why this whole Leipzig sold this whole deal to Leipzig thing it's over. Not over. It's over for now. He's going to have to go back and play his balls off, get his shit together, and start contributing again. And when he does that, then he can go to Leipzig. Leipzig watched that footage too. I wasn't the only one, and it was not impressive. He kind of lollygagged it for the last, when he came back. Maybe he wasn't fit. I don't know what the issue was, but he was not contributing like he did prior, the early part of the season when he was getting goals and assists. So, yeah, whatever. That's getting into the fucking weeds there, but I just want to be clear. I don't have anything against Caden Clark. I just think something more needs to happen. You did. All right. Jordan Morris is here, and I don't mind that 1 second. And I think the real battle here is Areola versus Morris for that one last winger spot going into the World Cup.
Gio comes back.
Yeah, and Weah's healthy, and Aaronson's healthy, Pulisic's healthy. Maybe Conrad starts playing on the regular. I don't know how much space is left for an extra spot. So I don't know how you could. Conrad is in that battle too, maybe down the line, but right now it's Areola versus Morris.
After today's performance, maybe Sargent's going to be there now.
I prefer Morris, but you're right. By the way, Sargent scored 2 goals today. Playing right midfield / right winger. And now Norwich City are out of relegation. The interview with Sargent after the game was so fucking hilarious, dude. It was awesome. And he's like, yeah, when I scored the second goal, I had to make sure I made the baby thing so my wife could see me because I forgot to do it on the first goal. Yeah. He's like, so thank God I scored the second one. It's what a great interview.
He was gung-ho about getting more and more goals every single time he got the ball. It's just like, he's going for the hat trick. He's going for the hat trick. He's going for the hat trick.
Yeah, I know. It was
good
great
to see.
That Scorpion reaction goal was great. Hit the top bar, I believe, and went down into the goal just over the line. And then the second one was sort of just a well-placed header. Yep. I watched the guys after the game, this Paramount crew, and they're kind of like, yeah, they're still the worst team in the English Premier League. I'm like, really? Are they? I don't think so. I don't think they're that
since
bad.
The coaching. I think since he didn't win before the coaching change, they weren't a terrible team. They just couldn't capitalize on shit. But now they're playing well, and they go toe to toe with the big boys. They just don't score goals.
Yeah.
So it's I don't think that they're quote unquote the worst team. If they could just find a string of goal scorers, obviously that's a very John Madden thing of me to say. Like, if only they would score more goals, they would win more games. But
yeah, that sounds very Howard Cosell. The rain is very wet. Exactly. But at the same time, you got to keep in mind there are players that are coming back from injury. There are players coming back from Rona on this team, and you guys got like Ida, or is it Ida? I can't remember.
Ida, I think. I'm pretty sure it's Ida.
Yeah. And
I've heard it both ways.
He's playing it on the regular now, and so I don't think it's as bad. Like, their weakest spot really is the back four. Like, that's kind of like the questionable area for them. And the midfield has
they've definitely leaked in a shit ton of goals. So
yeah. But maybe they're going to pull it together now. They might survive this shit after all.
They have a couple games where, like, lose to Chelsea like 7-1, lose to I think it was I think Tottenham beat them 4-1. A couple games, then all of a sudden their goal differential's massive. And it looks awful, like, oh my God, what were the defense doing? But the big thing is they lose a lot of games that are 1-0 games, 2-1 games, or whatever, 2-0 games that they get a last goal at the last second type thing. And if only they would just capitalize on a couple of their opportunities, the games would be massively different.
And the other interesting thing is they don't always, when they play the big boy teams, they don't always play a low block.
Not at all, actually.
They don't bunker. And so they're trying to like go for it and get a goal.
Well,
and they're chasing and they're pressing. And it's like, okay, That's risky. And if you do that against a good team, they can kill you 7-1.
That Tottenham game is a perfect example of that because they stood toe to toe with them. They had more opportunities, and yet they still lost 4-1. You know, it's just,
exactly.
There's just Tottenham capitalized on their fewer opportunities, and Norwich is like, man, we could have had like 5 goals in that game. You know, but
yeah. Well, maybe this is like a turning point. You know, Josh has had his baby and now he scored 2 goals. Maybe maybe something's turning here. I mean, I would have preferred, even without those 2 goals, to see Sargent on this team instead of Giassi Zardes, who made this roster. But that's me. That's me, folks.
Well,
It's not an anti-MLS thing. Again, we love Zimmerman. We love Miles Robinson. We like plenty of the MLS. Acosta's effective most of the time. It's not an anti-MLS thing. I don't rate Zardes. I'm sorry. I mean, except for his ability to score goals off his cock and his noggin when he has no idea that he scored a goal. I mean, we do need luck, and he's a lucky fucker. So.
Keeping Sargent off. Let's just say, if you had to pick between the two, who would you pick, Ferrer or Zardes? If you had to pick one of those two on the roster for this window, which one would you pick?
I would keep Ferreira.
Zardes just has the track record, and I understand Ferrer has significantly less games. So, I mean, hard to say the track record. I mean, I guess in fairness, he has 2 goals and 5 caps.
Yeah, so. I don't know. I mean, he just provides a different option. Whereas I think Zardes is more of a Pepi-like player. He's a poacher in the box. Pepi already provides that. So if you want to change how we're working, how we're playing on the field and play Ferreira as a false 9, you can do that. That gives you a second option. Whereas, you know, Zardes isn't going to play as a false 9. I mean, I guess he is the backup for Pepi, but if you're going to bring Zardes, why not just bring DK then? Or PFOC? I mean, we already explained.
Score like 4 goals in a Camp Cupcake or something.
Listen, he's been scoring goals for FC Dallas during the season as well. I mean, he's had a good season.
No, my point being is I'm looking at his little numbers on US Soccer, and it says 5 caps, 2 goals. But I could have swore he had like 3 or 4 goals in whatever Camp Cupcake that was like a year or 2 ago.
I don't remember that. I don't know if those count.
That's also a possibility, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah. And then you got Pulisic, you got Tim Weah. I'm really surprised to see Weah back on here because he just got back from injury and only played a handful of minutes at the end of the last Lille game. So I guess Lille's cool with it. Otherwise, they would have said, hey.
What could they say, actually?
Well, they could, I mean, when you call, they could say, listen, Greg. Timothy Weah is still he's injured. And he's just coming back from the injury. So could you please not call him up for this window, as you say in America, the window? And he could have said, okay, I get your complaints. I understand you're worried about this player. He is injury prone. We are playing in the Arctic Circle. Maybe I'll just take a different player. And those conversations happen all the time, just like that.
Yeah. The stereotypical French accent.
I did my best.
Yeah. No, Berhalter at that point should have been like, bitch, we're in the second to last window before the World Cup qualifying. Now I'm calling him in.
Yeah, and that could happen too. They could have said, what you think, Greg? And he could have said, well, listen, we really need him. He's really an essential part of our verticality, and so we need him, and so we're going to take him, and I'm sorry. And he said, okay, fuck it, Craig, you take him, fine.
Branching into Gizmo there.
Yes, I know.
Back it.
And so that could have been how that conversation goes, whereas I'm sure the conversations with German teams are louder. You know, they're louder conversations. You know, like let's say you call Mönchengladbach and they say, no, can't have him. Just got back from Rona. Not healthy. just screaming and yelling. Okay,
Another positive test. Can't take him. Sorry.
Greg's like, okay, back off. I'll back off.
My ears.
That's not probably what happened. So I don't know, but I'm just, the conversations do happen with clubs. I mean, the clubs have to be comfortable with the player going with their fitness and their health. And so, I mean, that's the thing. Nobody asks, so we don't know.
Well, it's possible maybe Will came out and said, hey, he's just got back from injury. I don't think he should be playing all that much. And Greg may come back and say, oh, no, I plan on using him as a sub for like the last 20 minutes at most.
Yeah, last
and
20
maybe
minutes.
Put him to ease. It's like, oh, okay, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, that is honestly how those conversations go.
Sure.
So that happens all the time. Okay, I'll just play him the last 10 minutes. That's all we were planning on. Anyhow, we realize he's just back from an injury, so we're going to use him sparingly. But we do need him. And they go, okay, good. That works for us. And so the conversation moves on. I'm trying to think of anything else we might have missed here.
I will correct one thing with Ferreira and his goals. When they played Trinidad back in 2021, he had 2 goals and 3 assists. So he's a part of 5 goals, but he only had 2 scored. So that's why I was confused.
Oh, okay. Maybe that. Yeah. So those did count. I thought they did count anyhow. They always count for friendlies.
Any cap would count. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's it, folks. I mean, that's there's good here. There's bad here.
I just broke my phone.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
At least it wasn't your cock.
Yeah. I'd be impressed. Your
Le Coq Sportif. We'll get in for future shows what we think is going to be the starting lineup for the first game. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss. Oh, another option, by the way, at center back could have been CCV. I mean, he's been playing well for Celtic, but it just doesn't
wasn't going to happen at this latest stage. A new player. I mean,
right.
Looking at the roster. I mean, any brand. I mean, outside of Slonina, everybody's been included at some point and capped. I mean, I guess in fairness, CCV has been capped, but not recently. Yeah. You know what? Actually, was it some friendlies before the Nations League? I think he was capped. So, I mean, he should be familiar with the system. This shouldn't be brand new to him.
Yeah, I don't know I haven't watched a ton of film from the CCV games.
I'm going solely off what other people say, and I haven't heard a bad thing about it.
When he scored goals, then I go watch the highlight and watch him score goals, usually on corner kicks or set pieces. And those are great. They're not a whole lot of them, but that's when I watch because I don't get a lot. I can't usually find. Well, if you watch highlights of a game, it's not usually, you don't get to see the defenders a lot. It's usually, unless they're getting attacked. And in this case, Celtic's always on the attack because they're playing like, I don't know, Hearts or Aberdeen or whatever. They're usually the more dominant team.
Yeah.
I should mention, on top of Sargent's goals today, 2 of them, Chandler went 74 in a loss. Sam Vines was in the 18, did not play for Antwerp. Tompkinson played for the U23s at Norwich in a win. Leonard Maloney got a red card in the 90th minute for Dortmund 2. And that was against Freiburg, who Max Dietz plays for. He was in the 18, didn't play. Novakovic got an assist as Frosinone won yet another game as they creep up the table.
When was that game?
Today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think, was it against Empoli? I can't remember. My brain's it's fucked. All right. So Ventura, Alvarado, and Fernando Arce played 90 for Juarez in a 1-0 win. And then that was versus David Rodriguez's San Luis, but David didn't play. Sealy went 90 for PSV 2. Reggie Cannon, again, another 90 for Boa Vista at center back in a 1-0 loss. Mendez was supposed to play, but it's such a late game. I'm like, yeah, I don't have time to keep checking in on this game. When is it starting? Sam Shashua and Moore went 6 minutes, ended the game for Tenerife in a win. And James Sands in a cup game for Rangers was in the 18, but did not play. So there you go. that sums up Friday. That way we don't have to do Friday.
Extremely late midweek report. We just had a midweek report out. I felt right. It just
I
came
know
out yesterday.
Came out yesterday.
This
I have
morning.
no idea how that's doing. It's probably doing like shit. People don't like the midweek reports. I don't know why.
They're not huge fans of any of the week reports.
I guess. Yeah, they're
not for whatever reason. I mean,
because they're just informational. That's why.
Fair point.
Yeah, and they're just like, okay, information.
764.
760.
Consistently low. I mean, and it's funny because we don't put like midweek report or weekend report on there.
No, we don't.
So it's just funny because all of our other videos are hitting like 1.1, 1.2 again. We're
1.3.
bouncing back up.
Yeah, and the midweek report, and it'll probably hit 1,000 at some point, but at some point it also becomes irrelevant.
Yeah,
because it happened too long ago for people to give a shit about. So there's that too. All right, we're gonna sign off now. Make sure you like, subscribe, share it with your Uncle Klaus. Also, don't pee on anybody while they're taking a shower. That's probably something. I mean, listen,
denial if you do later.
Unless that's some shit you're into, and then hey,
make sure they're into it too, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, make sure that they want to.
Shocked all of a sudden they're feeling something warm on their thigh.
Yeah, you don't want to get into one of those "I want to pee on you" situations, and so make sure they're also of age. That's tip of the hat to Dave Chappelle. And we'll be back. We got other shows that we already did on Thursday night that might even be irrelevant at this point. I don't know. I mean,
I'll double check. I mean, quite frankly, this is either going to be an hour-long show or you're going to have to split it at the Defenders. So it might be 2 shows before they even catch the transfer one and then the question one. So who knows?
I'm a divorced old man with a dog. I've got plenty of time. I'm going to work on the whole show tonight.
So you're going to do 1 hour show or whatever it is?
I'm going to do a big 1 long ass hour show.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys like that. Okay, we'll see you soon. Drink up. That hurt.